Well, as almost all the characters continue to down spiral, one character might have finally met her bitter end in a very intense episode that suggests what is sure to be a very crazy, intense finale. Hey guys, here for Better Call Saul, Season 3, Episode 9, Fall, and holy shit, one episode. I mean, this season in general, I think, has really hit its stride this year. They've really been firing on all cylinders, I think, pretty much all season, but now things are really starting to get intense and really starting to get personal, and we could be heading to a very, very eventful, but also very bitter finale. I mean, I don't know exactly where we're going, but something tells me this finale is going to be very tragic and even depressing, and I don't really know where we're headed, but let's just get into this episode because there definitely is a lot to talk about. Like I said in the intro, a lot of the episode are characters kind of grappling with, what they're going through. A lot of them are very much starting to meet, they're definitely falling off the deep end and they're continuing to down spiral, and Jimmy is definitely one of those characters. He's still basically desperate to get money in any way he can, and he turns to the one place that you never think Jimmy would have turned to, and he definitely would not have 2 seasons ago, and that is Sandpiper Crossing. And we know how much Jimmy has cared for Sandpiper Crossing. The work he's done there, the kind of legal help he's done, all the bingo stuff. I mean, he really... And in this episode, sure, he does support them, but he's, kind of using them in a way. And you definitely do see that here. Basically, he goes to Sandpiper Crossing to see Irene Landry, who is the class representative in the Sandpiper lawsuit. And, he does everything that she wants, gets her cookies and basically sets all of that up for her. And, he's got the cat-shaped cookies for his former clients, and he checks up on one of the residents, asks why she's still living there after the settlement. Davis and Maine, his former employers, have taken up the case, and she says that it's basically still months away. What is she still doing here? And, basically, why is she still in this really bad environment? And Irene lets Jimmy look at Aaron's settlement offer, and he's taken aback by the figure, and he tries to persuade her to accept the proposal right away against Aaron's advice. Don't listen to Aaron. You're the person who lives here. You need to advocate for yourself in this case. And he sees Irene off. She leaves with her chair, yoga group, and he ends up walking out of the Sandpiper building, and he calculates the numbers and realizes that he stands to gain over $1.16 million from the settlement. So again, Jimmy's not really thinking about her here. He's just kind of thinking about how this is going to profit, that they're going to profit all this money and that this is actually really going to help them in this way. And this could really benefit him moving forward. But again, he's not really thinking about what he really should be. What I think Jimmy really should be thinking about is obviously, supporting them and things like that. But that's not what he's thinking about here. He's focused, again, just on the money. And it really is showing how much Jimmy is starting to down spiral. And I really do love the way this opening sequence was done. You can tell that she thinks that he cares about them. And she thinks this is the same Jimmy. But in reality, Jimmy's just doing this as a way to gain some money. And to him, this is no different from anyone else he's got money from. He's just in a desperate need to get money, and he'll do anything he can to do so, and that's kind of why he's going to Irene Landry. Not to help her out, but basically just to get money from her, and it definitely is very sad to see what he has to do to get that money. So we then see at the offices of Madrigal Electromotive, GmbH in Houston, Texas, Mike actually meets with Lydia. Now, we briefly did see Lydia in that one scene with Gus, but this is the first episode we see her in length. Now, we still don't see a lot of her. We see her in this one scene, but I get the feeling she's going to play a bigger role from here on out. Like, she is going to be in the show a little bit more, which they did with Hector last year. Remember, they introduced Hector as Tio, and we saw him a little bit in Season 2, when we've seen him in great length this season. I feel like that's what they're going to do with Lydia next year. Like, we're going to see a lot more of her, in Season 4. But basically, he meets with her to make arrangements for his hiring by Gus as a secretary consultant. We find out that's actually the position that Gus wanted to have, and he expresses concern about being exposed if Madrigal were subjected to an audit. Why would he, he's obviously very worried about that. What could happen there? But Lydia assures him that he will not attract any outside attention, that his name will be kept off the books. And as we know, that, Gus just wants to provide for his family. That's really all he wants to do here. He's just looking for money so he can build that playground, and basically, he asks why Lydia is risking her job for a drug dealer. Obviously, what she's doing is very dangerous, but she replies that Gus is much more than that, and Mike signs off on the deal. And I would agree. I mean, sure, Gus is involved in some really shady shit, but at the same time, he's very good at what he does. He's very presentable. He actually is giving back to people, and Gus is a very complicated character in that way, where basically all his life, he's been kind of appraised for what he's done, and he thinks that he deserves all of that, praise and things like that. That's just kind of who Gus is, and I definitely do agree with Lydia that Gus is a lot more than that, and she assures him this is the first time she's really done this for anyone. She hasn't really done this for anyone before, and I really did love the way that was done, and I'm definitely interested in seeing where that's going to go from here on out. So we then see at HHM, Chuck and Hamlin actually meet with two Santa Rosa representatives, and they want to double the premiums of every lawyer at the firm due to Chuck's mental illness, that they feel like that's what they need to do. And Chuck actually threatens litigation, that no, this is an outrage, there's no way you should do this, and Hamlin is very discomfortable, and you can really see that Hamlin, the reality of the situation is really starting to soak in. Like, he's really starting to realize how hopeless of a situation this is, and despite the fact that he really has represented Chuck, and he really has done everything he can to get him the legal help, and he really, I think wants to help him. He wants Chuck to be partners, basically. Chuck, basically, he just is continuing to down spiral. He thinks that this is all because of his condition. He's trying to prove a point by turning on the lights, but Hamlin points to his declining mental health, basically, that he's not well. Like, there's no way that he's well, and he's in no condition to continue working. And I would agree with Hamlin that it's just not a good idea. So basically, he broaches the possibility of Chuck taking a job offer as a college lecturer while becoming partner emeritus at HHM, and he becomes irate as he realizes that Hamlin wants him actually to retire. Like, he feels like he just should not be working anymore. He's in a place where he shouldn't be. I mean, the place that Chuck is in right now, it's not a safe working environment at all. He's obviously very distracted. He's trying to beat this condition. The best thing to do, I'd say, is to take time off. And sometimes you just kind of have to do that as a worker. But that's something that Chuck isn't really willing to do. He doesn't want to have to take that time off. He wants to continue to be able what he's doing. But Hamlin knows that, he just can only do that for so long. He can't just keep working and working and working. Eventually, he's going to have to, stop what he's doing and to put that aside a little bit, which again really does suck, because you want Chuck to be able to continue what he's doing, but Hamlin knows very well that he can't, and that Chuck, obviously, he is in no condition to really continue working, and it's sad really what Chuck is really going through there. I really did feel bad for him in this situation, but basically he says he can no longer trust Chuck's judgment, and you can understand why. After what Chuck did at that hearing, he just can't trust him anymore, meaning that the two actually cannot be partners. They just can't work together anymore, and Chuck storms out. He obviously is extremely hurt. He can't believe that Chuck would say something like, that Hamlin would say something like this to him, and I honestly really did feel bad for Chuck in this scene. They've done a really good job with getting us to really understand the nature of what Chuck is really going through, and to really understand his, how upset he really is, and what's really going on with him. I mean, honestly, I really did feel bad for Chuck in this situation, and I really do hate the fact that Chuck, he is being treated this way, and it really does suck that he is in this position right now. So I definitely did feel bad for Chuck. I like, obviously, that people are starting to understand what's going on here, but again, that's kind of the nature of the beast, that Chuck's situation, eventually it is going to start to get to him, and it is affecting him illegally, and unfortunately because of that, Hamlin just can't have him work there anymore, which really does suck. You want Chuck to be able to go back there, but he just can't. So I really did feel bad for him there, and I think, again, they really did show that very well here. So we then see at a remote oil field, Kim is meeting with a prospective client named Billy Gatewood. Now we remember she talked to Jimmy about this, meeting with this client, possibly switching clients, not really wanting to work for Jimmy anymore, but she meets him on Kevin's recommendation, and Billy fills in Kim about his tax issues stemming from the fact that his oil field crosses the New Mexico-Texas border, and she promises to propose a solution to Gatwood's tax problems within 2 weeks. And after he leaves, she finds that her car has become stuck in the dirt, and this was fantastic foreshadowing. I love the way this is done. It's obviously foreshadowing something a little bit later into the episode, which I'll talk about, but Kim actually used a piece of plywood to force the car free, but she narrowly avoids keeping the car from rolling into an oil well, and it was this close from, completely getting destroyed, and she records the meeting in her tape recorder, and she drives away, and you can see how upset she really was. I mean, they're already in debt as they are, but basically, she drives away. She feels like maybe this could actually go well for her, and I love the way that was done here. So basically, at the parking garage of HHM, Jimmy actually confronts Hamlin about the Sam Piper settlement offer. He wants him to know about it, pointing out that HHM stands to gain over a few $1 million from the offer that HHM wants to put off. And Jimmy then asks for Hamlin to settle immediately, saying it would be the right thing to do for the clients. And Hamlin outright refuses. He is not at all into this idea, seeing that Jimmy is feigning concern for the clients. He's not really that upset. He's doing it under the guise that he's helping them out, but we know very well that Jimmy's just doing this to get himself a couple bucks, and he's primarily interested in the settlement because he would financially benefit from his cut of the money. And obviously, Hamlin's not willing to adhere to something like that. He also wants Jimmy against employing any dirty tricks to get the settlement approved. And I agree. I mean, it's just not a smart idea what Jimmy's really doing. What he's doing here is very shady, and it's basically what Slip and Jimmy used to do all the time. And if I was Howard, I wouldn't be wanting to, work with Jimmy either. I really would not be in favor of what he's doing. I think it makes sense why he wasn't okay with this. Obviously, Jimmy can propose all he wants, but he says all he cares about is his own share. He assures him that he'll get his money, but he will have to wait for it. So obviously, Hamlin's not willing to adhere to that. But Hector and Gus then meet at a remote location, flanked by their respective henchmen, and I love the way this is done. This is the first, we obviously have seen other scenes with them, but we've set up this tension so well that this scene was so well executed. We see over a speakerphone, Hector actually communicates with Juan Bolza, who tells him that Don Eliado, sorry, I can't pronounce his name, is satisfied with the new consolidated transportation method of shipping drugs over the border. And he wants the practice to actually continue using Gus's distribution network exclusively. So Hector's heart problems are end up acting up. They lead him to open the vial containing Nacho spike pills. However, the pills have no effect whatsoever. Nothing is really happening. It's kind of like the placebo effect. When someone tells you that something's wrong with a pill and you don't do anything, well, at this point, basically, this has no effect on him whatsoever. So basically, it's not worth anything. It has no effect on him, and basically, these pills, he can tell there's definitely something's up, and he curses Aledo and Bolza and Gus before leaving, so he can tell there's definitely something going on here. He just doesn't have any idea who actually did. He thinks that Gus was behind this, or, that Don was behind this, or Juan Bolza was behind this. He has no idea who it really was, and I don't know how long that's gonna last. Like I said, I do feel Nacho's days are numbered on the show, and I still very much do believe that at the end of this, at the end of this episode, but I do think it's gonna take a while for Hector to finally realize who it really is. But this is him kind of taking the first step and realizing someone definitely did switch the pills. Someone definitely did do this on purpose, and he is obviously very adamant on finding out who this is going to be. So, donning a tacky headband and tracksuit, Jimmy goes to a shopping mall, and he intercepts Irene. Now, he's obviously not just going to take Hamlin's no for an answer. That's not who Jimmy is, and I think that's kind of the flaw that Jimmy's had throughout this show, is that he does not take no for an answer. He does what he wants to do, and she's walking by her chair, with her chair yoga group, and he gives Irene an expensive pair of new track shoes, and after this, he embarks on a prolonged scheme to indirectly pressure her into settling by turning her friends against her. Literally, he's telling her, look, forget your friend, just turn him against you, telling them that she has taken improper advantage of being the class representative in the sandpiper suit, and citing the running shoes as proof. Now, you know, the way he's doing this I actually thought was well done. Like, he's trying to make her think that this is actually going to help her, and that she should advocate for herself, and as a result of his demonization, Irene's friends actually do ostracize her. They're making fun of her, much to her surprise and confusion. You know, they don't really know, she doesn't really know why they're doing this. Why are they all of a sudden just ostracizing her like this? You know, why are they just outright excluding her? I mean, obviously, she didn't want anything to do with this. You know, she obviously wants to be friends with them, and Jimmy is kind of ruining it that way. And it's kind of fucked up what Jimmy's doing, I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is a lot more fucked up than Jimmy usually is. And sure, he's done things that are definitely messed up, but this is one of the things he's done in a long time. Probably one of the worst things he's done throughout the whole show. And I get it that he's desperate, but I mean, he literally is turning this old woman's friends against her, and this is already a woman who is not in the best of spirits, and he really is ruining a lot of her life. So I really did feel bad for her here. But Nacho, seeing that the pills have actually failed to kill Hector, he goes to his father Manuel's house, because obviously these pills were meant to kill Hector. That's what they were all set to do. But he goes to Manuel's house and he comes clean to him. He admits he actually fell in again with Hector. And I like that he came clean, because Manuel had no idea what was going on. But he says that he will soon be coming to take control of Manuel's upholstery shop, and Nacho pleads his father to do what Hector wants and not do anything stupid, meaning approaching the police. You just can't get them involved, because Hector and Gus, they're just above it. I mean, they're gonna make it, Gus will make it seem like he did this great thing, and he'll try to turn it around, and it's not gonna end up well for Manuel. So he refuses. I mean, he feels like, why not get the police involved? Like, they're the ones who should be involved in this matter. And he tells Nacho to get out of the house, which he obliges, and I can understand why he's really upset. He wanted nothing to do with Hector and Gus, and, Nacho really went against him in that regard. So he urges him to follow his every word, because it'll all be over soon, and he's just not willing to listen to him because of what Nacho did. But I don't know if this is really going to end up well for Manuel. I mean, if I was Manuel, I'd be really worried right now, and I don't think this is going to go really well for him at all. So for me, if I was in Manuel's position, I would be very worried about Hector. He obviously is on the way. He's going to, accuse Emmanuel. Manuel, he thinks, could be the one at fault here, and I don't know the way it's going to go, but I would be very worried if I was in Manuel's shoes right now. So again, I get obviously why Nacho did what he did. He felt like this was a way to kill Hector, but kind of like everything else this season, every action has a consequence. And I feel like that's been really the theme of the season. It's all kind of about consequences and people having to deal with reality, and that sometimes you don't get off the hook. And I don't think Nacho's off the hook at all. I think eventually this is going to come to bite him in the ass, and it kind of already is. His own father wants nothing to do with him because of who he's allied with. Manuel wants nothing to do with this group, and it's already kind of turning Nacho against his father. And I think this is just the first building block to really Nacho's downfall, which I don't think we're going to really start to see till next season, but I definitely feel like that's going to be a major point moving forward. So Hamlin's in hand an envelope from Chuck, which he learns that Chuck actually plans to sue HHM for breach of contract, because if they want nothing to do with him, Chuck still feels like this is all personal, like this is just because of his condition, and he's not willing to really understand that what they're doing kind of makes a lot of sense. And Hamlin actually goes to Chuck's house to confront him, noticing that Chuck has reinstalled the electricity. So everything, because Chuck is kind of realizing that this was all kind of made up, and that he doesn't actually have this condition. And Chuck insists that he's overcoming his EHS delusion, like he's starting to get over it, and he vows to fight Hamlin in court in order to retain control of the firm he built from the ground up. And when Hamlin leaves, Chuck is forced to put down an electrical cooking implement, showing that he is still struggling with living around electricity. He's just kind of telling people, and I think, truthfully, he does want to be over it, but he's just not. And that scene with Hamlin, I mean, it's really devastating stuff, I have to say. And, Hamlin's telling him not to make an enemy out of him, and he's saying all this stuff like, oh, I'm going to take you to court, but I just don't think Chuck's in the condition for it. Truthfully, I don't think it's a good idea for Chuck to do something like that. And I think, he does really want to be back in court, and I think he does want that position, but he's just in no condition to continue doing what he's been doing, and this could really end up badly for him, I have to say. So I definitely am worried for Chuck in that regard. But in the middle of the night, inside his office at Wexler McGill, Jimmy actually tampers with some of the balls used for Sandpiper Crossing's bingo game, and the following day he uses the rigged balls to ensure that Irene wins first prize. And we get a similar scene to like the bingo scenes. The difference is Jimmy's really phoning it in at this point. Like, he's not really as happy as he is. He's not as passionate as he used to be. This is something that used to bring him joy, and that he used to use as a coping mechanism, but now he really is kind of just phoning it in. He doesn't actually believe it. However, no one else in the room is applauding around her, kind of sensing that they also don't really feel like this is real, and she flees the room and is reduced to tears, realizing that all of her friends have left her, and Jimmy has, in fact, isolated her from everyone, and he approaches her under the guise of trying to help, basically, suggesting that it's in the best interest of the group and her relationships that she accepts the settlement offer right away. So again, Jimmy is literally making her feel like this is a good thing for her, and he says that they probably turned on her because of settlement. He thinks they want the money, meaning that he does, but she laments the lawsuit, saying that they should have never taken it. All he tells her to do is listen to her heart and to just take the settlement. And again, it's really just fucked up what Jimmy's doing. I can't, there's not another way to interpret it. It really is fucked up, and Jimmy is kind of turning into this monster, I have to say, and you can really tell how he is going to transform to Saul Goodman moving forward. He really is starting to become very uncaring, and this is a group that he's put so much effort into, and the fact that he is acting this way, it's really sad to see, I have to say. So he returns to Wexler McGill with a bottle of tequila. He tells Kim the Sandpiper case has now been settled, and he can now cover his expenses. However, Kim is not listening to him at all. She's actually very distracted because she's continuing to move forward. She's trying to move on with other cases. She's, late to a meeting with Gatwood, and she's too distracted to listen to Jimmy or share his celebratory mood. And this was a very interesting scene. Again, I really do feel like this is Kim moving away from Jimmy. And after she leaves, a dejected Jimmy sharing tequila shots with Francesca, who really is the only person he has left in his life that really seems to be close to him. And we get this incredible scene at the end where meanwhile she's driving to her meeting with Gatwood. She falls asleep at the wheel, which we already knew in the episode that Kim was having a lot of problems sleeping. She wasn't sleeping very well. She's been having all this kind of insomnia and stuff like that, and it really is starting to have a huge effect on her, where she falls asleep at the wheel, and she's badly injured when her car crashes into the ditch, which I love that, again, the way they foreshadowed that in the beginning of the episode. It actually does crash into a ditch this time. She stumbles out of the wreck as legal papers lure the ground around her, with her fate seemingly unknown, and that is the way this episode ends. Really tragic stuff overall, but let's just get into this episode and where it's going to take us into the finale. So, wow, I mean, I knew that this season, it's been very dark, basically all season, but things are really starting to get bleak now, I have to say. Let's talk about Kim, who, like I said, I do still think is better off without Jimmy, and this episode, the end of the episode really does categorize in that. The reason that Kim is having these sleepless nights is not because it's not her own, it's not her own fault she's having these sleepless nights. It's because of things like Jimmy. Jimmy's constantly distracting her. She's just not really thinking about it. She's trying to clearly move away from Jimmy and focus on other clients, but she just can't do that. She keeps getting pulled back to Jimmy, and it's sad, you want her to be able to get away from it, but it just doesn't seem possible. Like, it seems like no matter what she does, she's kind of like tethered to Jimmy, and there's just nothing she can really do about that. So I really did feel bad for her in that instance. And then you got Jimmy, who he's just become so uncharacteristically arrogant and just rude and out of his element. I mean, this is not the Jimmy McGill that we've fallen in love with over the show, but it's not supposed to be either. He really is down spiraling because of his confidence and because of his desperation to get money. He's doing whatever he can to gain it, and it's pathetic. It is, but it's also really sad to see, especially when you go to Sandpiper Crossing, something that Jimmy once really did care about and something that really did used to bring him joy. And now it's all kind of fake, and he's just doing it as a way, to really, as a way to really continue just as a way to really just continue making money and to keep practicing law, and he just doesn't have the care that he really used to have. So, and especially what he's doing to Irene, I mean, it's so fucked up. The fact that he's making her lose all her friends and making her feel like it's the only option possible. I agree with Hamlin. It's not a good idea at all. It's so against what he's trying to do, and it's just not right. I mean, this is a woman who he does care about, and, it's clearly Jimmy doesn't care as much. So Jimmy is kind of turning into his own villain of the show, and I can very well understand why the show's doing that. I think he's just grown way too confident, and now it's really starting to go to his head a bit. And not just go to his head, but it's really starting to destroy everything that Jimmy used to be. All the good stuff about him is kind of going down the drain, we can see. Now, as far as Chuck goes, I mean, I really do feel bad for Chuck in this instance. The fact that Chuck, in general, he is still adamant on suing Hamlin, but Hamlin is telling him, no, you're not well. I mean, obviously, Chuck's not over what's happening to him. I think he's going further and further down the rabbit hole. I think as much as he does want to get that help, he just doesn't want to take that time. He wants everything to happen instantaneously, and that's just not how it works. I think, he truthfully does want to be over it, but we know what that doctor said, that it takes weeks, it takes months. It's a good start, but he just needs to try, and Chuck isn't willing to take that extra step. He just wants it all to happen immediately, and that's just not how life works. Things don't just happen. You gotta wait sometimes, and that's something that Chuck just isn't really willing to do. So I really did feel bad for him in that scene. I thought it was definitely really depressing to see what Chuck's really gone through, and all of that was definitely very saddening to see. So I really did feel bad for everything that was going down there with Chuck. Just really, really depressing stuff overall. And then as far as Nacho, like I said, I do feel that Nacho's days are very much numbered. And despite the fact that Mike seems like, he's going to work for Gus, and it seems like it's kind of this smart idea with him working for him, as far as the whole thing with Nacho goes, clearly Hector is starting to already notice that something's up with his pills, and he doesn't suspect it's Nacho yet, but I do feel like Nacho is not going to get off the hook. He's going to get in trouble for this, and who knows what's really going to happen there. We'll have to see the way that really does play out. And again, I don't think it's all going to go this season, but I think a lot of the rest of the show is going to be us seeing, how Nacho really does deal with a lot of that. Now, as far as Kim goes, I don't think she's dead. I don't think they would kill Kim off that way. She needs to have one last really big scene with Jimmy, and then they're definitely going to kill her off. I don't think Kim's going to die, though. I think she's going to go try to practice law, and I don't know. I think she'll make it through this. I think she'll definitely have some sort of, long-term injury, but I think she'll be okay. Definitely there'll be some sort of, like I said, some sort of outcome with this injury, but I don't think she'll be all the way dead. So we'll have to see the way that really does go. Overall, guys, was an absolutely incredible episode. It was tough to watch at points, definitely, because everyone is kind of following, and definitely is, like I said, going further down the rabbit hole. But I do think we're in for a very intense, very unfortunately depressing finale. But I definitely really did enjoy this episode overall. This still was a great episode, and I'm definitely gonna give Better Call Saul Season 3, Episode 9, Fall, a 4.75 out of 5, or an A. So overall, guys, in this episode of Better Call Saul, let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Guys, I have finally made it. I will now finally be getting to the finale. I know it's taking me a long time, and I apologize for that, guys, but I will finally get to the finale of Better Call Saul. You bet you I will definitely be reviewing that in the next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
You want to tell the world you're in love with a girl named Fran? So you find an overpass and you say it with a spray paint can. Blue lights start a blinking, those handcuffs click. You know who to call, and you better call quick. Saul, Saul, you better call Saul. You'll fight for your rights when your back's to the wall. Stick it to the man, justice for all.